Hi, I'm Gabriel. This is I Want to Build It, and in this episode we are restoring an old vintage fridge for the man cave. Old stuff just has so much more character, and appliances from the 40s and 50s just has that style. It just has that round, cool, 50s, 40s look. I just love it, and therefore a fridge from that era is perfect for the man cave, especially for a beer fridge. This particular fridge that we have here holds a certain sentimental value for me because it used to be my grandparents' fridge. And not just that, it was actually my grandparents' very first fridge that they bought together in their young years. And because my grandmother has never liked throwing anything away, I was actually able to find the original owner's manual that came with the fridge. And the manual actually has the warranty information filled out in my grandmother's writing with the purchase date written down here of May 16th, 1950. So to me, this fridge is really cool, and because of its history, it's very important for me to do a good job on it. My original idea on this fridge was to replace all of the refrigeration components to modern things and basically make it into a new fridge. However, after doing a lot of research, everyone on the forum seems to tell me that the 65-year-old compressor that's in this thing will actually outlast most brand new modern compressors. But isn't this thing going to be absolutely terrible on electricity? Absolutely not. That is actually one huge myth about these old fridges that is just not true. I have actually metered this fridge for a 2-month period of time, and on average it takes about 1.5 kilowatts per day, and that's about the same as my kitchen fridge. Sure, the old refrigerants that were used in these systems were deadly poisonous if they leaked out. However, they were actually pretty efficient. And these old refrigerators also lack the power-consuming self-defrost features that are found in most modern fridges. Just look at how thick these walls are. Imagine how awesomely efficient this fridge can be with proper insulation. We're basically going to rip this fridge apart, take the dents out of it, do a little body work, put a nice automotive-oriented man cave style paint job, re-insulate it, make it a little bit more efficient, and we got ourselves a really cool man cave fridge. All right, let's get started. The first step was to take the fridge completely apart, starting with the door and working my way in. For the most part, everything came apart really nicely. But on a side note, it's easy to feel inclined to tilt the fridge sideways for easier access to some of the pieces, but it's important to note that a fridge should never be tilted, especially one with vintage, hard-to-find parts. Tilting a fridge and plugging it back in can severely damage the compressor. So if for some reason the fridge does get tilted, damage can usually be avoided by letting it sit upright for a minimum of 24 hours before plugging it back in. Now when it came time to take the refrigeration components out, the whole process made me a little nervous, and since I was planning on reusing all of this, it was very important to be incredibly gentle with these 65-year-old refrigerant lines, as any crack or rupture would release poisonous gas and also create an expensive and unwanted repair. Thankfully though, everything went pretty well. Oh yeah, and here's something else that's pretty cool. Check out these old letters from the 50s I found lodged into the condenser area. I bet the people who originally sent them never imagined that they'd end up on YouTube 60 years into the future. Now that the compressor is sitting safely on the ground over here, we can now safely tilt the fridge down to the ground and get underneath and do some work. So after I grinded off all of the surface rust, I applied a self-etching primer to the affected areas, followed by a rubberized, rust-resistant coating. Here beside me we have the inside insert of the fridge. I'm pretty impressed at how nice it still looks after all these years. I'm not sure that anything that I would put over this would be as strong and robust as this to take the abuse that the inside of a fridge gets. So for that reason, I have decided to keep the inside of the fridge intact as it came from the factory. It is now time to re-insulate the inside of this fridge. I will not be using the old insulation that we ripped out of there. Instead, I will be filling it with foam. Now, the correct foam that appliance companies actually use to insulate fridges nowadays is pretty much beyond the scope of this project. So what I am going to use, however, is these cans of insulating spray foam. I really wanted to use foam insulation, not only because of the higher R value, but also because it completely seals the inside of the walls, preventing the small drafts that cause condensation and make the metal rust. My biggest worry about using foam, however, is that foam is highly flammable, and none of the electrical connections were shielded very well, partly because no one cared back then, but also because the original insulation was not flammable. So I'm going to have to be extra careful and do my best to shield every connection as best as possible. Working on this 65-year-old fridge has really made me understand the level of quality and craftsmanship that went into manufacturing in those days. The human touch is noticeable in every screw and every piece of sheet metal. This thing has went through so many eras, from being a young family's new fridge, to being the old fridge Grandma and Grandpa had down in the basement, to being showcased to the entire world on YouTube. The truth is, after this restoration, there's just no reason why it wouldn't last for another 65 years. Stay tuned for the second and final part of this vintage refrigerator series, where we'll apply primer and paint along with the final touches, and we'll put our antique fridge to the test and see just how energy efficient a 1950s refrigerator can really be.